So I was worried that we'd have to cancel the podcast today.
Because Gita's not here? What's the point if Gita's not here? No one's going to listen. They're going to tune in, and now you put this in the tease, and they're not even going to listen through the opening sting. It's just going to be like, delete.
Mark as played.
Yeah.
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to the net. We just have to get more and more pucks to the net.
Pucks on net.
Put pucks on net.
Pucks on net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Continue to put pucks on net.
Pucks on net!
Put pucks on net and get lucky sometime.
Pucks on net and driving and making it a hard night on it.
Live on tape from my studio apartment, a stone's throw away from the pump jack in the west end of downtown Vancouver, British Columbia. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast that doesn't talk about fantasy. Let's talk about fantasy or fancy stats. We're in the midst of a very dull sporting weekend, Paul. Would you not agree?
As I've told you, I'm a only hockey guy. Not really into other sports, so especially boring for someone like myself.
We got the AHL skills competition on in my apartment right now because there ain't much happening.
Curtis Lazar's there. No sign of any hamburgers yet, but who knows what the future will hold.
The only reason he ate that burger off the ice was because he's on that rookie salary. He's not making a lot of money. He needs to eat. The boy needs to eat.
There's a lot of protein in those too.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. We were just talking before the show. Our mutual enjoyment of a standard McDonald's cheeseburger.
Yeah, no, the best thing you can do is just buy the basic standard, whatever it used to be like. Back in my day, it was 89 cents. I think it's like $1.39 now. Considering inflation, that's still a pretty good deal. Anyway, one of those, or even two if you're really hungry, you're set.
And even without Gita on the podcast this week, it's still a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not going to listen to this episode, but hopefully other people do.
She was in Barbados with her new friend Rihanna. Did you know about that?
Yeah, I heard, and she was complaining about how she only got to go to Barbados this time.
Yeah,
she wanted more countries and more exotic locales, but she had to settle for Barbados.
That's the plight of Gita.
Hope you're enjoying listening to us wherever you are on the beaches of Barbados or Honolulu or, I don't know, Long Beach, California, the windy shores of Scotland.
Myrtle Beach, North or South Carolina? I can't remember.
The Carolinas, as we refer to them on this podcast.
That's right. My name is Ryan Schapp. I'll be your host for the evening. And sitting directly across from me on my couch I bought at IKEA, that's P-Mac. I made him some coffee.
Thank you for the coffee, Ryan.
Now,
happy to be here, even if Gita's not.
Come on, I'm here. So I was worried that the show, we would have to cancel the podcast this week as I had some sort of 24-hour flu yesterday.
I mean, I could have just recorded myself.
It would have just been you talking to yourself because I had no energy. Like, I just laid here in the dark from about 8 p.m. till about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, we've had multiple people tweet at us on the podcast saying, why do you keep interrupting PMAC all the time? So if you're out of commission, Gita's out of town, we forget to phone Dave, the people will finally get what they wanted. More PMAC.
Can you imagine just listening to yourself
There are podcasts like that.
No, there's tons. It's like the first 20 minutes of WTF with Mark Maron, where it's just some weeks it's very enjoyable and folksy, and others it's just him going on and on and on.
I would definitely want to script it if I did a solo podcast.
Would you want a nice music bed? Like This American Life?
Like constant, as I talk about more traumatic things, you play tense music. No, I heard somebody do that on a podcast I was listening to the other day. It was an interview, but they were trying to, when the person answered and went on for a while, they must have gone back after and laid down a bed of music that was like it was kind of weird. They were talking about experiences in Africa, and it was this like stereotypical tribal music, and I was like, this is a little bit...
I don't think you have the rights to Lady
Smith. Poor taste, you know?
I don't think you have the rights to Ladysmith Black Mumbazo.
Anyway... I'm not a big fan of It depends on the circumstances
want me
when
to-
you lay music. It's got to be a produced storytelling situation when you lay the music down.
I think what you're saying is you want me to go back and post and put beds of music under all the podcasts.
But we have different tastes in music, so I wouldn't be happy probably with half your selections.
It would be like the Home Alone soundtrack. You know, it'd be like a score.
The instrumental score.
Yeah, a score, yeah.
Yeah. No, I could hear. You could just lay down some of that main Home Alone theme right now underneath what we're talking about.
Well, see, now we're on the same page. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for downloading us wherever you got us from. I want to make sure that you follow us on Twitter at pucksonnetca or pucksonnetca. I really got to think of a better way of doing that.
You need a board or something. 'Cause
Yeah.
every week it seems like there's more of a delay. Follow us on pucksonnet.ca. And there's still a long delay.
And if you want to support the show monetarily, again, you want to pledge some of your hard-earned dollars to support the show and get some additional content, you can head over to patreon.com/pucksonnet where you can pledge a couple of bucks.
That was better.
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
And most importantly, go to pucksonnet.ca where you can read our blog posts. We had 2 go out this week. Dave and I each wrote one. And you can sign up for the newsletter, Paul. The email newsletter.
Yeah, I read that. I mean, half the time Ryan's stats on the fantasy league are correct.
They are
That's
now.
a good 50%.
I figured it out.
I think you made me look better this week. He said I was down by 20. I think I'm down by like 50 or something. But
we don't. Nothing to worry about. That.
We're good. We're fine.
Well, I'll bring up Dave right away. I always forget to turn that off. There we go. Live in our nation's capital, fresh off of another OHL building trip. This is Dave.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Oh, we're pretty good. It's the second slowest sporting weekend of the year, so we're just hanging out, having a good old time. Just you, me, and PMAC here.
Were you one of the people trying to see Mikey DiPietro today?
I was trying to see Mikey DiPietro today, and I saw some other guy who played his second game in a row in 2 nights. So they paid all those big Bantam draft picks to have Mikey DiPietro sit on the bench.
Maybe he's feeling like Ryan. Maybe he's got a bit of a flu.
Yeah, I'm suffering from a little bit of the beer and bourbon flu today. A steady diet of pulled pork and Heineken's and Maker's Mark has left me a little worse for wear. So I scarfed down a $9 poutine.
Oh, how was it?
Yeah, it was all right. As far as OHL buildings go, the slanty shanty that is the TD Place Civic Center, which is tucked lovingly, spooning, if you will. It's the little spoon, tucked right into the football stadium. We were on the side that is underneath the stands. It's actually physically underneath the stands of the football stadium where we were sitting on the west side of the arena. It's a very comfortable rink. There's lots of places. There's lots of tabletops to sit and eat a sandwich. But yeah, the beer prices and the food prices are higher than the Canadian Tire Center out in Canada.
Interesting. Well, they got I guess maybe that's the 67s are a bit more of a draw than the Sens are this year. Maybe that's got something to do with it.
The crowd was pretty good, I got to say. It was a pretty full building today for a 2 p.m. start, and the team is excellent. They are really, really good.
Well, they're a team. Did DiPietro get traded to the 67s?
Yes,
because they're loading up for a Memorial Cup run. So yeah, I can imagine they're quite the good team.
Yeah, this was 2 teams that are loading up for the Memorial Cup run. The Saginaw Spirit, Stephen Colbert's favorite team, because he loves their mascot, which is a bald eagle.
That's right.
They have also picked up a Top Gun, and we saw Owen Tippett play today.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Very noticeable.
Yeah.
Very, very noticeable. But yeah, just Ottawa. They're a mid-2000s Giants team. They're just a juggernaut. Big, strong, fast.
Oh yeah.
And it was a 1-1 game for a while, and then they scored 4 straight goals in the third period, and it was all over. But a good time, a good hang with our friend of the show, Yerky 21. And all in all, a good experience. 4.25 stars on the OHL building ranking of the Slanty Shanty.
Dave, did you watch any of the skills competition or anything of the All-Star weekend?
Friday night I was playing my own game,
Mm-hmm.
so I saw a bit of the skills in the bar because everything starts so late here.
Yeah, especially
we
8 o'clock start there.
we were able to catch the passing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And who was it that really struggled? There was a guy. It was just painful to watch. Rantanen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we caught that, and all these beer league weekend warriors just giving him the business. I wish you guys could have heard it in the bar. Everybody, oh man, this guy fucking sucks.
Oh,
yeah,
I could have done that.
Yeah, I could have done better. He's only third in the league in scoring, kids.
And he's still a kid. He's half the age of most of those beer leaguers.
I know we did that. We did our own version of it a couple weeks ago. We were skating out on the Ottawa River, like me and a few guys from the Swamp Donkeys, and we had set up a 2x4, kind of leaning it on the skinny side.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept hitting that piece of plywood all day. I couldn't get it over the 2x4 to save my life, but and they were chirping me pretty good. But you know, I still consider myself a pretty decent hockey player. I can't sauce. I'm too busy scoring.
If you're gonna I could recommend watching from last year's skill competition where they had to do the event where it's they have to put the puck through the different levels, the different height through the.
Yeah, they did that again this year.
Yeah, but if you watch last year, Drew Doughty was stuck with that, and he was so flustered and so annoyed by it because he was struggling so much. I can't remember if he was swearing on the air, but it's a tremendous watch.
When he picks up the puck and just throws it through the hoop?
I think he might have done that towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, see, I like that. That's a great show of his personality. Because, we were talking about this on last night. Mrs. Dave and I had dinner, and I had some drinks with a buddy from my team. And, you know, it's nice to see these events because it gives the guys to show a little personality. But we feel just in this day and age, it just feels like a lot of chicken and pasta eating robots, you know.
For the most part, yes. I actually had a little bit of fun with it. I kind of enjoyed watching it this year. And there was a handful of players that, you know, there wasn't your standard PK Subban, I got to, ham it up because it's the All-Star game. But, you know, for the most part, it seemed like players were just having a lot of fun with it. And
you still had, Auston Matthews stripping off his jersey to show a Marlowe jersey underneath for the San Jose fans.
I love that, though. That was his dad.
Oh, I'm not making fun of him. No, I like that you bring up the character thing, and it reminds me of... I didn't watch anything too intently as far as on the ice this weekend, but I had the stuff going in the background. Dougie Wilson was on with the panel at one point talking about how they encourage personalities in San Jose as opposed to other markets in the NHL potentially, and Joe Thornton's been a big part of that, and seeing Erik Karlsson was one of the bigger personalities. Along with, of course, Brent Burns out there on the ice.
Brent Burns, a big personality. Let's not jump to conclusions.
It was great to see Erik Karlsson sort of take Elias Pettersson under his wing. It seemed like every time I saw Karlsson, it seemed like Pettersson was right there with him, like his little sidekick.
Oh yeah.
It was nice to see him get a chance to spend time with Karlsson and Henrik Lundqvist as well. I think the Canucks were the big winners, if you really want to think about it, for that All-Star weekend, and getting that guy around some professionals, some Swedes who have done a lot of great things in this league for a long time.
And some people are trying to jump on some excitement train by some quote Karlsson gave to the media when they asked him about Pettersson. He said, it was good to get to know him this weekend because I have so many friends in Vancouver and they've all been telling me about this kid. And everyone was like, Karlsson has a lot of friends in Vancouver. You know where that means he'll want to play.
You know where he wants to spend a lot of money on taxes and cost of living.
Hey,
I got a lot of friends in Vancouver, and let me tell you, I ain't coming back anytime soon.
I don't think it's going to happen, but I fully expect the Canucks to, whether they can afford it or not, throw all the money possible at Karlsson, because that's what the Aquilinis will want to do.
They got money to throw.
You know what? You guys complain about that, and I think it's ridiculous too. It's not the time and the place in this franchise's history to make a move like that. But at least, you know, as a hockey fan, they wanted. I like an owner that wants to do stuff like that. It's better than the alternative.
If you're gonna do that, not that I would probably make the move if I were in the seat, but of all the guys to do it with, Erik Karlsson's still only 28 or so.
29, 28.
And
yeah, lots of hockey left in the tank.
If you need a defenseman, he's the right type of defense. It would be the one that would be like, it could have been worse.
Yeah, it's not like you're going after Mr. Intangibles, Eric Branson. You're going after the typical defenseman that the entire game is based around now.
So
there's been a trend online, by the way, that I've really been enjoying on the Twitter.
Oh yeah,
where people have been posting players like Goodbranson and other high picks that haven't really panned out. Their TSN like draft bios, like when they're about to get drafted, and it's the player comparables.
Yes.
Oh man,
have you guys seen this on Twitter?
The Delzato comparison.
I saw the Derek.
What was Delzato's, Paulie? I can't remember.
Oh no, it was Pouliot. Who does Pouliot project to be?
Right.
Michael Delzato.
Let's put those two on a line together. Let's see what they can do.
Well, they're the same guy. The Canucks got rid of Delzato because they got young Delzato in the lineup right now.
Little D, as he's known around.
Yeah,
the Canucks dressing
yeah.
room. And Goodbranson's was Chris Pronger, which is fucking hysterical.
I think we were talking about this the other day, where it's like, yeah, if a guy like Eric Goodbranson played hockey in the mid '90s, there's a good chance he could be who people thought he would be when he was drafted as high as he was. Like, it's a different game.
Foote, and Adam Foote would be Eric Goodbranson today.
There's so much of that. And I was looking, I think we're going to talk a little bit later about RFA offer sheets. And I was looking over Scott Stevens again, and he's another guy that like was so sought after at his time, but in today's NHL, maybe not an Eric Goodbranson. But not as effective as he was.
He's on a chain gang, and he's on a chain gang in this.
Yeah, no, he's been arrested.
He's out of the
by
league.
Today's, yeah.
Was Scott Stevens offer sheeted?
Yeah, we'll get into that if we're talking about that later. I did the homework. Yeah.
Was he offer sheeted when he was in Washington?
He was offer sheeted in Washington, and then the Blues lost him because they had to compensate the Devils for offer sheeting Shanahan. So I don't know if you want to get into that now.
Yeah.
Double whammy.
There's a whole setup, though. I figure we're getting into offer sheets. I don't want to.
The professor, Ron Caron, threatened to fight Lou Lamoriello in a barn over it.
The Blues ended up losing 6 first-round picks. 6 6.5, basically, to the Devils.
Does Ron Caron escape the stink of worst general manager in NHL history? Because he probably was the worst NHL general manager.
There've been a lot of. I mean, Mike Milbury's still up there, I think.
Well, I think they named the award after Mike Milbury. He has to present it on NBC at the end of the year. That'd be great if they did like a hockey version of the Razzies.
The worst GM of the year.
We could start
GM
it.
Of the year.
We'll be blackballed.
Yeah.
And maybe people like Grant Fuhr will be coming after us instead of Twitter trolls. But hey, we'll make a name for ourselves.
I've been defending Grant Fuhr on the internet all week. I can't believe how stupid some like these younger. I don't know if what's the after millennials? I don't know. Stupid kids. Anyway.
There's stupid people of every age, Dave. Let's not just frame them within generations.
You had, because I know Grant Fuhr was outspoken against analytics a little bit earlier this week, and he took some heat. But like coming back at him with you had an 880 save percentage in your career, you suck. Like he's got a Thanos fist full of Stanley Cup rings and played on 2 Canada Cups. And Wayne Gretzky has often been quoted that if I had to play a game for everything that I own, I would want Grant Fuhr to be the goalie. I think he's probably pretty good.
Yeah, we get it. We get it that goalies 20 years ago weren't as good as Carey Price. It's just like right. Get over it.
I don't think there was anyone. I agree with you that Fuhr was more in the right out of those people, but like everyone was in the wrong. I don't think there was like a big winner there. Grant Fuhr was basically like just the blow off argument, like, oh, you can't look at numbers. You gotta. He didn't really go in depth to why he felt the way he did, and then people jumped on that.
Probably because he was going on some.
He wasn't exactly as articulate as he probably wanted to be.
But then in return, if you're a Twitter troll, they're not being that articulate. They're just trying to slam an NHL Hall of Famer, which was stupid. Like nobody came out looking. That's the thing with Twitter. I may eventually leave because I'm realizing when you look at most of those situations, nobody ends up looking good.
No,
I too had that gut check moment, Paulie. I'm like, maybe I delete and start anew. And I'm a little more positive.
It's an interesting venue to discuss things. Anytime I try to be the bigger person, it doesn't work out generally the way I want it to.
No, it's not worth it. Speaking of Twitter trolls, we'll talk about this because I started watching the skills competition on Friday night, and I forget who the first. Oh, it was Kendall Cohen Schofield, the USA Olympian, and she went out to do the fastest skater And I thought I thought they had these female hockey players coming out just to show how the events worked. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Introduce those faces to hockey fans, and
got to start marketing that Beijing Olympics. Yeah, got to get the faces out there.
Well, when you put it like that, it's pretty accurate.
Well, and they're trying to sell. We're seeing more and more Sportsnet picking up games from the women's league, which is great to see.
And so when she comes out there to do the fastest skater, I'm like, oh man, that's pretty cool. I hope she, has a good time, and she can, fucking does 14.4 seconds, which was right up there with the dudes. Like, I was blown away. And then you had Brianna Decker, who did the passing contest, which they didn't even time. And up until they really looked into it, she had the best time next to Leon Draisaitl.
She beat him. She beat Draisaitl.
What the NHL went back and properly timed it, and the time is something like 1:12 or 1:13.
Somebody reported on Twitter that it was
Friedman,
the
Elliott.
winning time. No, I think there was somebody else before he even got in there, and then he picked that up. But it turned out, if you actually went back and looked at the tape, Sportsnet and the NHL both said, no, the actual time was 1:12 point something or whatever.
Regardless,
it was extremely good.
Two incredible times. But I don't know why there would be any form of outrage or just general fucking firestorm from the internet. But apparently there was. But I thought that was a great move by having those female players in the skills competition, and I thought that was just fantastic. I don't know what you guys thought about it.
I liked it a lot. I think that in order to grow the women's game, in order to grow things like the CWHL and leagues like that, we need to get these players some exposure, and this is a great opportunity for that. It's win-win. It's good for the NHL, and it's good for the female players, and it's good for the kids to get eyeballs on these women and make them stars. Like, you have to make them stars to get people to really buy into things like this. Like airing the games on Sportsnet, on Sunday afternoons is fine, and airing their All-Star Game is fine. But putting them in these events where people are watching the greatest male players in the world gets them exposure, and that's what you need. Because now maybe that you've seen these two girls now, maybe you'll buy tickets, to go see your local women's team if you've got one in your area. Maybe you'll watch more games to see them specifically.
Well, and the biggest knock is always, the skill's not there. But you just watch those two girls hang with the best in the NHL. And I had no idea that skill level was there. I mean, you can call me ignorant all you want, but I had no idea that there was a woman off the U.S. Olympic team that could skate that fast, or that could do the passing contest like that. Like, I was blown away, and it's totally changed my perception. And then you remember that the women's Olympic Games were so much more entertaining and so much more exciting than the men's Olympic Games the last couple Olympics.
Certainly the finals, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And the last round of Olympics where you didn't really have the proper Olympians on the men's side.
You had a bunch of former Canucks really taking care of business.
You would rather watch Haley Wickenheiser than Gilbert Brulé and Rene Bourque?
Yes.
And Ben Scrivens?
I actually got to thinking why, if there was a opportunity to play a co-ed game where you had some of the best players come in from the women's league, the All-Star Game would be the place to do it.
Totally.
Because
absolutely.
The main concern people have is that it's not as physical a game on the women's side. But if you had the top-end players, it relies more on speed and skill. It'd be interesting to see the types of moves that we'd see them try, attempt, pull off in that type of a situation, and it may open more eyes than Ryan over here at the skills competition to have one or two members of each All-Star squad.
That $1 million might mean a little bit more to them too, and the guys might try a little bit harder to get their female teamates a cut of that $1 million.
You make a great point, because women's hockey players in North America are making pennies, fucking fractions of pennies on the dollar compared to what to what dudes are making. They're getting
0.2 cents. 0.2 cents off every transaction. You use your credit card, I get 0.2 cents. No, it's true. And Sidney Crosby winning was like a Nissan Altima. He's going to be driving that thing around.
It's a nice little gift to
he probably
his aunt.
would. He's the only guy who actually would, because he's got no personality, and neither does that car.
Well, it's good on gas, and it's a nice, reliable automobile, and I don't think anybody's going to steal it.
I respect guys like that. Someone told me Yannick Hansen was driving around a fairly, simple Honda or something when all the other guys were in their fancy vehicles.
Yeah.
And I always respected that about him.
No, I mean, I respect it too, and it's, you're being smart with your money, and you don't need things to be flashy, but it's just kind of comical a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
From my time with the hockey team, I remember the Sedins always pulling in Teslas, and all the young guys. There's a deal with the Audi dealership in North Van, and like all the guys in Toronto are driving the same black Audi sedan.
I think
Patterson's their spokesperson here now. I guess you're probably not getting all those commercials, Dave, but he's on all the commercials now.
Yeah, I know that I've seen Horvat around Yale Town with his Audi, and Pedersen with his Audi, and Brock Besser with his Audi. And Jake Vertanen's an Abbotsford boy, so he stole an F-150 from his neighbor, and he drives that into the rink every night. Oh, his mom's going to email us.
That's probably, I know that is one of the most commonly stolen vehicles in the province, FYI.
Absolutely. Oh, it's great for the wet bandits. They can fit a lot of loot in the back.
Dave, did you see... Did you guys follow all the weird, nonsensical new technology they had for player tracking? And
I followed the basics of it. I wasn't watching the U.S. broadcast, so apparently they weren't using it that much on the CBC feed.
All I got was that they could identify where the players were, they could identify how fast the puck was moving, and they could identify the distance between players, but that was about it. Like, it didn't...
I can do all that with my eyeballs and my ear holes.
The speed of the players... Mm-hmm. And it's more specific tracking of ice time and where they are on the ice and acceleration and how fast you're skating back. Not in that game necessarily, but on defensive
but here's what
they're
missing with all these numbers and stuff like that. And this is, I got into a discussion with Ian about this today, broader strokes about fancy stats. Does all that information make the game more fun? That's the question that's not being asked in those production meetings, because the answer for me is no. Like, there's nothing romantic about the wind resistance, coming off Connor McDavid's ass as he's skating out. I could give a shit. I don't care, right? Like, it's like, let's not like sports is romantic. Like, why are we taking something that's romantic and emotional and turning it into a goddamn science project? It just doesn't make any sense.
Do you think maybe these numbers are good for, teams to have when it comes to, ranking or profiling players, as opposed to having them that put out that publicly like they did over the weekend?
I don't know. Ask John Chayeka how his science experiment in Arizona is doing.
Hey, they have a lot of injuries, and they are more or less in the playoffs because of the Pacific Division. So Chayka is doing just fine.
And Max Domi wasn't good enough to play on his team anymore, but Alex Galchenyuk's Corsi was better. Well, I don't know.
No, Max Domi just needed a big hockey town to play in. He couldn't do it in Arizona. He had to go where the pressure was on. That's what they'll tell you every day, twice on Sundays.
I suppose so. But yeah, I don't know. Like, having all that stuff on the screen, like,
it's going to give me a seizure.
It's distracting. I just want to watch the hockey.
Well, let's hold up here a second. Now, they threw up some numbers and name tags on players to show what was possible. That doesn't mean they're going to be putting the nameplates over the players like you're playing NHL 19 or whatever, or the speed of the players. Sometimes in the replay, I thought it was interesting what I saw, the acceleration as a guy moves past another guy to see how quick that actually is. And
but that's not good TV, Paulie. Like, use the time during the broadcast to tell me a story. Tell me a story. Tell some stories. Make a movie out of it.
No one says you can't tell stories and look at those numbers at the same time, Dave.
I think it's going to be a while before they can properly, tell a story at that level of journalism or broadcasting without going, good God, look at this number. Like, it's going to take...
It's not a matter of saying, look at this number. It's having more tools and information at your fingertips. Yes, there's definitely a way people could overuse the numbers for it to become a boring math project or whatever you're afraid of. But having more information is not a bad thing, because you got your eye test and then you can go back and go, yeah, wow, he was even faster at acceleration than I thought he was, because that defenseman is even faster than the average defenseman. Like, it's a matter of, like, you don't have to use it, but it's there. And as a fan, if you're looking at the information, you don't have to look at it, but you can go back and look at it later. Or especially when it comes to scouting junior players, you maybe get to see a guy a couple nights, but you're able to look over a season at some of the numbers and be like, was what I saw consistent with what his effort was on the back check or whatever? Like,
I just don't want to see it.
It's not a numbers only thing. It's like you add it onto the eye test and the enjoyment and all that.
I mean,
like you're not giving anything up.
From a fan's perspective watching the game, there's very little times that I can think of that I want to know those very specific stats while watching a game. But that's just me.
I don't care.
I'm not looking at it necessarily as an entertainment thing. It's just another tool.
I think that's what Dave and I are. Is
I want more entertainment. So do you, Ryan. You want more backstory. I want to know about like the mining town from Northern Ontario that the guy's from. I want to know what his mom and dad do for a living.
And
what they say.
Like, you guys are saying that's all on the bench. Gonna disappear. If it starts to, and the numbers are replacing it, all I want
to know is I want to know how Derek Pouliot grew up his whole life idolizing Michael Del Zotto, and he's going to play just like him, and that's all that I want. And that's all I want. And then I want a bunch of old white dudes in the intermission telling me how Elias Pettersson is too prickly.
Yeah, they don't like him, do they? And I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I love his heel turn. It's been great.
Google it.
Yeah. Anyway, I got into this debate with Ian today, and I just think, it's fine for the guys, the suits upstairs, and for running the hockey side of things. Like, I'm not an analytics naysayer. I think it's got its place and it's in the game, and I think it's important. And if I was a general manager, I'd want that data for sure. I'd want somebody debriefing me daily on this kind of data. But as a fan, as somebody who enjoys the game, enjoys watching it, enjoys writing about it from my perspective, and enjoys talking to you guys about it, I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's not about math. When I was a kid, I didn't pick up a stick and a puck and want to do fractions. My love of hockey and my appreciation of the game comes from a deeply emotional and ritualistic place in my life. And as coming from somebody who plays the game still every week, I'm just trying not to get killed, and that's in men's league. I'm not thinking about math. I'm just reacting to stuff. Hockey is a reactionary game, both instinctual and an emotional level. And I feel like the analytics side of it creeping into the broadcast and creeping into the mainstream conversation of the fans is bad for hockey. I think it's bad for hockey. I think it's stupid.
It's one of those why not both situations for me. It's like information is there. You don't have to look at it. I don't feel like a lot of broadcasts are going that in-depth with this stuff. And the existence of these new chips seems to be a good thing, but you guys are pushing more it's going to take over the whole broadcast. They're just going to be showing me fractions on the screen. How dare those nerds do this to my game?
Isn't the whole point
I don't think it's going to be a big part of the broadcast.
Isn't the whole point of all this technology for gambling? That's what I keep reading about.
That's who's funding it. I mean, it's the same thing as what funded going to the moon. Potential war threat and trying to show that you're stronger than the Soviets. It's money that drives technology like this.
I just keep thinking of Michael Scott going, they've replaced your thing and put a calculator down there.
All right. Well, Dave, we'll let you go on that note. And
okay.
Well, no, unless you want to stick around. I don't know what you're doing.
Not really. No, I gotta iron all my pants for work coming up. I got a lot of things to do. I got things to do.
Okay.
I'm gonna get going.
Well, I'll let you go, and then we'll definitely talk to you next week.
All right. Keep your sticks on the ice, kids.
Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Say good night to Dave.
That was for everybody else, right? Not me.
No, that's for you too.
No.
You're not saying good night to Dave?
No, we're on bad terms now.
Okay. Well, now I'm really curious about this offer sheet stuff.
Offer sheet stuff. What was the other? We didn't get into the other big debate talking about the women at the All-Star Game, though, was people talking about the potential for in the future, could women play in the NHL? And there are a few people that were very upset at even suggesting that would happen one day.
Now, were these people of credibility, or were they just nameless, faceless eggs on Twitter?
Generic Twitter folks. And it was shocking to me.
Because the regular folk will react negatively, well, they're just going to give them that spot because they're a woman, not because they're the best suited candidate. And that's with anything.
There's a little bit of that, and then talking about the size and skill.
Johnny Gaudreau.
Well, I was going to go to that. They had a little interview on the bench because Johnny's dad was the assistant coach for one of the assistant coaches on their bench. at the All-Star Game, and I was surprised at how open he was with that. I think it was Scott Oak just asked him, like, what did you think? Your son, undersized, good hockey player, but did you brace him for the possibility of not becoming a professional based on size alone? And his dad was straight up like, yeah, we basically told him NCAA's, the dream and about as good as you'll ever be, and like braced him for the fact that he wouldn't be able to play pro because he's too small, because there's been such dramatic change, or at least an attempt to go in that direction in recent years, that's opened the things up for a guy listed at 5'9", 165, and if you're listed at 5'9" in the NHL, you're probably 5'7", maybe 5'6".
Yeah, Theo Fleury height.
And it's interesting, we've seen more guys like that able to play in the NHL. So the argument doesn't hold up, because there are some women who are bigger than the Johnny Gaudreaus that play in the NHL.
Yeah. What it's going to take for that to happen is just more in development of play of women's hockey, the support, the league's getting better and better, and with the skill level we've seen already, there definitely could happen. There's nothing to say that no, God damn it, there's no chance in hell.
People were referencing like Haley Wickenheiser could only play second tier Finnish men's league.
What year was that?
This is 10 years ago.
Yeah, but
the game has changed so much.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's from the era when Johnny Gaudreau was like a teenager being told, you're never going to make it as a pro.
That's what because, Chris Pronger will kill you out there, son. You're going to play NCAA, and then you're going to get a job as an accountant in the greater Pennsylvania area, and then that's it. Yeah,
paper company. Paper salesman. It's a different game, and then people are jumping to the men will never be able to hit or punch a woman because everyone will be up in arms. How can you do that? And I'm like,
barely any hitting or fighting in the game right now anyway.
There's that, but that's tied to a history of, domestic violence and stuff, where just larger people are using their status as a larger person to dominate smaller people. It's the same thing in the NHL where, if you're against women playing in the league because men shouldn't be able to hit them, well then isn't the argument the same? You should be opposed to larger players in the NHL hitting the Johnny Gaudreaus and what have you in the league. What's the difference there? If a woman can play at the same level, it shouldn't make a difference. If they're willing to play the game, that's a different thing, because you're basically signing off anyone playing in that league. I may be slammed into a wall by a 6'7" defenseman, and I'm okay with this because I've signed on to play this sport. It's a totally different situation than what people are comparing it to.
I think they're just reaching for excuses.
Yeah, no, and I think we could see the day where someone who's a little bit creative, outside the box thinker, at the NHL level might be able to do one of these things, like we've seen. Oh, what was the movie, the Disney movie I've referenced before? Glory Road. Someone's going to go in Glory Road and find these 3 female players or something that are better than half the guys in the NHL, and they'll give them the shot. They'll find the loophole in the rules and bring them in the lineup, and they'll shock everybody because of their someone's going to take advantage of this. It's more stereotype. I'm not saying it'll be soon, but yeah, if the support's there.
And they'll likely be Russian.
Yeah, they're going to ship them in by night from Soviet. Yeah, anyway. Who's to say?
I'm all for it.
If a woman's able to make the team, she should. If you can play, you can play. That's a slogan they've been throwing around the NHL lately about other things, but it shouldn't make a difference.
Imagine being the first. Let's say there is a female hockey player
to play in the regular season.
Regular season, not
because we've seen preseason.
Men all rail. No. Regular season.
Yeah. First
female hockey player gets in a fight.
I mean,
can you imagine?
The type of player that will probably break that barrier down is going to have to be some badass that can throw them with
190
comparable size player.
190 pounds of twisted steel and sex appeal. I agree.
All right, that's the trouble. See, no matter what, there's going to be weird jokes like that made too.
Well, yeah. But
anyway, I lived in Africa when I was younger. There was a woman there, friend of mine. I mean, we were all 20-year-olds or whatever, but she and who she was working with late one night got some guys confronted them and asked for their money and stuff. and she socked one of the guys in the face. She was, about my height at least, and probably similar build at the time.
Yeah.
She had grown up working on a farm in Idaho, socked the guy in the face, took him down in one punch. They then pulled knives on them, and they gave them the money, but everything was okay.
But she was going down swinging.
But she, if there weren't knives involved, they were like afraid of this woman. Like, I don't know. That's like, if you're talking about physical differences, just because the average woman is smaller than the average man doesn't mean you're not going to have women who are capable of fulfilling roles in sports.
And if you have a woman that makes her way all the way to the NHL, that woman is going to be fucking tough.
Yeah, and mentally tough because she's going to deal with so much garbage.
And then she's going to get in a fight with Dale Weiss or somebody, and then Dale Weiss will get the unfortunate nickname of Girl Puncher the rest of his NHL career. Actually, I think his NHL career is over. I think he just got put on waivers. But
anyway, it'll be interesting if it, in any sport, not just hockey. You think it could happen in a sport like basketball or baseball, maybe.
Yeah.
Just because there's less physical contact, but who knows? There are definitely amazing female athletes out there, and I'm glad they got a chance to, at least in a small way, showcase some of their skills on the weekend with the NHLers.
Yeah, and speaking from the weekend, there's Kevin Bieksa was doing color commentary down in between the benches, and I think his dream is done.
Playing?
Yeah.
Well, did you watch the interview he did on After Hours?
That he might go play in Europe or something.
Well, he's talking about that, but they also sort of were joking like, "What you've committed to work on the All-Star broadcast with us? What do you mean you're going to Europe?" And he was kind of like, "Yeah, something better comes up. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna say no to you guys. I'd rather be playing hockey than broadcasting." Essentially, is what he said.
Okay.
So the fact that he did say that, and then he was at the All-Star game, there's probably a good sign that he's looking to shift things over. What did you like? I liked the commentary that he gave. I like his arrogant kind of sense of humor.
Yeah.
I wondered how it hit with people from markets where he didn't play, because he comes off being arrogant.
He's a West Coast centric player that has a big reputation in this part of the league, in this part of the continent, but people back east maybe not.
So his personality traits feel like a bit of an inside joke. I worry they'd be an inside joke, where I think he's great at what he does. I think his analysis is good, his personality is good, but I could see him rubbing people the wrong way if they don't know what they're getting into.
All the best ones do.
There you go. So I hope it works out. Yeah. It's not a matter of saying, like, I don't like his making fun of the Sedins for not having a good shot or whatever. I'm just saying that's one that Vancouver fans might turn on you, depending on who it is. But, I mean, overall, I think Vancouver fans probably get him because they know Juice.
Yeah.
But someone tuning in from St. Louis or Denver or Washington or whatever might be like, who's this?
The big stronghold of Sedin supporters in Denver and St. Louis will be very offended. I have that.
Well, that's the type of thing. They'll love him in Chicago now. Speaking of, women in the sport and using female as an insult with all the Sedin sister comments you get out of some of these markets that were Canuck rivals back in the day. But
can I bring up that soundbite?
Of Kevin Bieksa?
Now that's not his A shot.
That's a Sedin shot right there.
What does that mean?
And what do you mean by that?
I mean, it's a muffin.
It's a muffin.
I was worried about the little emphasis he put on muffin, wondering if he was... That could be considered a little off,
There was another burn he had to another former player, and he did it to Ryan Kessler. I don't know if you heard this one, but I'm going to...
I don't know if I caught that one. I only saw the first game of the All-Star triple play.
This is a very good line.
We have a real treat. Last night at dinner we sat with Kevin Bieksa. Of course, he killed San Jose here in 2011, so I don't know if you should be in this arena,
really
Kevin.
did.
You had the winner. You had 4 goals in that final series to get you into the Stanley Cup. Unbelievable. There's Donald S. with a young Kevin Bieksa, the native of Grimsby, Ontario. Used to referee him with the Burlington Cougars, and there he is ringside. Up to you, Jim Houston and Craig Simpson with Kevin.
Well, Bieksa, how are you feeling about your first National Hockey League All-Star game so far?
I'm feeling pretty comfortable down here, guys, and I was just talking with Ryan Kessler, and I played 0 games this year, and I've been invited here, and he's played 45, and he's got nothing. So I'm very fortunate to be at my first All-Star game.
Any chance to take a run at Ryan, he'll take it.
Oh, you got to take it.
I still love the Guzzler story. People remember that. reporter came in, thought Bieksa was Ryan Kessler,
Yes.
and Bieksa just went with the whole interview. And he said his nickname with the guys was Guzzler.
The Guzzler. And that was a really good clip. And he's like, oh, you being in a hockey, being a proud resident, proud native of Livonia.
Well, he kept
Michigan.
hitting up just being an American.
Yeah.
I don't care about
Love
what
being
the Canadians think. Love America.
Love
America
America.
first. Basically. Anyway, yeah, no, I liked what Juice did. I was the one on Twitter saying like they should give him Don Cherry's spot because he's got a bit of an edge. But
Yeah.
he does seem more aware of certain things. We'll see based on some more games how close to the edge he gets on things. But I think there's a bit more of a cultural awareness for what is cool and isn't, and what is a good argument and isn't.
Yeah.
When you bring it into just like the person's cultural background or whatever, like Don Cherry will do occasionally.
Well, let's be honest. Ulf Samuelsson, he did take all those runs at those guys, and he wore a very big visor. So that should be applicable to all people of that background.
No,
No question.
Love to see Don Cherry go toe-to-toe with some of the toughest French players to play in the league. See how that goes over.
I quite like Kevin Bieksa, and I think it will translate over time. I mean, it took a few years for a guy like Don Cherry used to do color commentary for the first few years of his career, and he basically got in trouble for more or less cheering on the Leafs on the games he was broadcasting.
He's always been, heavy on the Leafs, heavy on the Bruins.
So, I mean, that happens with everybody, and everybody has their favorites, but I think that he's an intelligent guy, and you could clearly tell he was picking his spots. He was thinking about when and what he was going to interject into the broadcast instead of just shooting his mouth off. So I quite like that. And he's young enough that he's just removed from the game, and he played that rough. He was an advocate of the tough, the rougher, tougher type aspects of the game. Mm-hmm. And he provides something that I quite like.
It'll be interesting if he can work on and I liked what he was giving, the analytical side of it. And I'm not talking about, Dave's going to tweet me now. I'm not talking about analytic stats, but just like
I don't care how far apart the two players are.
Ray Ferraro, just the way that they break down what they just saw. Yeah. That side of the analysis is what I'm talking about. I think if he hones that just a little bit more, and Ray does such a great job of that relative to a lot of former players, he was able to shift gears into explaining things, and some guys have trouble with it because they'll explain it so another hockey player will understand, but some guys are better at explaining it on a whole to someone who either didn't play the game or didn't play the game to the same level that these guys did, which is very few of the viewers at home.
Well, I love listening to a player break down the style of play in any sport in a way that the regular Joe Six-Pack can understand it, because Ray Ferraro can do that, and listening to Bieksa do that, and just it is one of the most fascinating aspects of a player going into a media role
and you got to find that sweet spot though. You're not condescending.
Like
you're not going too far.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna name names, but there's some people that go too far, but there's some that you don't make assumptions that everybody knows everything you do, or you try to think of it from other perspectives anyway.
Of course.
I think Juice has the potential to do that.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So can we talk about offer sheets?
Sure. So set it up. I mean,
okay, here's the deal.
Offer sheet's a conversation I got
to stay off Twitter right now because I have to watch the Royal Rumble on tape delay. And so every time I open up a browser, I go, oh, geez. Anyway.
Sorry to get in the way of the Royal Rumble.
This is, I'm doing it for a friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
And so
you're kicking me out and bringing someone over after this.
He'll be here at like 7:30. You can stay too if you want. But
I'll have to get food, but maybe.
I need to get food too. But I needed to stay off social media and stay occupied. And I'm like, well, we're going to do the podcast on Sunday. Let's do it right now. And it's going to keep me occupied. So that's what I'm in the middle of. Did you listen to John Chayka on 31 Thoughts?
No, I think that one's still in my queue to listen, but I've got it queued up.
It's a good show, and I quite like him.
Yeah, no, I like what I've heard of the guy too. Mm-hmm. And I get people mocking the lack. The thing with Chayka is he's in a market. He's got so much baggage in excess to trying to be a more analytic person in the game.
Well, they're being
all that.
They're being analytical because they don't have any fucking money.
Yeah.
And if John Chayka was a GM of a market, let's say, that's spending to the cap every year, I imagine he'd have a lot more success.
Or a potential to do everything that he wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to judge what he does working in Arizona. I don't think I'll be able to judge it.
We can judge him because he's the GM of the most boring team in the NHL for the last 20 years. And their leading scorer is Brad Richardson. But he's...
As we've talked about, injuries play into that somewhat.
And they're going to make the playoffs, and that'll be just fine.
Will they?
Will they make the playoffs? Have you seen
the
Pacific?
They could.
I don't think the Canucks are going to make the playoffs.
Honestly, of those teams after the top 3 in that division,
yeah,
it'll be a roll of the dice. I think there's enough parity with those teams. It'll be who gets hot when, who gets a hot goalie.
Yeah.
And if the Coyotes actually have an NHL goaltender, which they haven't had so far, they've got as good a shot as anyone in that box. Edmonton's another team, as bad as they are and as horrifying as that burning trash heap is. I still think either Koskinen or Cam Talbot get hot, and a couple of their players like Milan Lucic wake up.
Get some confidence going.
They can easily
chemistry.
Slide into a wild card spot in this division.
3 points out or whatever they are.
People... I don't know, it'll be fun to watch this division because it will be a bit of a lottery.
It'll be fire wagon hockey.
Who hits their stride at the right moment.
But I'm watching the Canucks lose to these not bad teams, but teams at their level or teams that should be at their level. And I don't like how they're losing.
And they haven't lost that many in the last 2 months.
I don't know. I think they need this break.
What do they got? 7 losses since the start of December or something?
I was hearing a couple of comments that they are...
Or at least Markstrom only has 7 losses or something.
I've been hearing I heard a few comments after the game, last couple of games, that they're pretty tired. And they're really looking forward to things. They have 8 days off, I think it is.
Yeah,
or 10.
They played so many games by the end of December relative to everybody else. Even though they had a late January, that type of stuff can still build up, even if you're playing fewer games. So I can see there being this is a good time for them to get, or at least potentially could be a good time to have this 10-day break or whatever to reset everything. Let Pettersson hopefully heal up. He wasn't going full guns a-blazing at the All-Star Game, it seemed like. So that was a good call on his part.
I worry a lot of players weren't going full guns a-blazing.
Short shifts. Loved seeing that from Pettersson. He was making sure to keep him 40 seconds or less or whatever. And
meanwhile, who was out there taking minute 30 shifts? Eric
everyone.
Carlson?
Everyone. And it was fun to see at the end when Jim Houston called down to the bench and said, "You need to put Connor McDavid and Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Pettersson together," and Peters was like,
"Okay,
sure,
Johnny,
I'm a man of the people. Yeah, Johnny, suit up, you're going in."
I love that,
and they scored at least 1, if not 2, on the next couple of shifts.
But then he also was like, "You got to pull the goalie, Peters. You got to pull the goalie." He's like, "Well, all right," and then they scored on him the next play. That was one of my favorite things, was listening to the coaches clearly just bullshit about how lax the game was. And
the central bench was being run by Nathan
McKinnon.
Nathan McKinnon took over, and
Paul Maurice.
Paul Maurice kept repeatedly saying, I am not running the show here. Why are you saying this to me?
I love it.
Radio down to McKinnon. He's in charge.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been putting off offer sheets for the whole show.
So what's going on with offer sheets right now?
Nothing. But there's scuttlebutt.
Theoretically.
The Toronto Maple Leafs are backed into a corner, and they're going to try and sign both those restricted free agents, Mitch Marner and Auston Matthews, to a contract. And I get the sense that they're going to offer Auston Matthews or Mitch Marner first, and then you offer sheet. Let's say Arizona, for example, you offer sheet them immediately. They sign them, and then you offer sheet the next guy.
If they get to the offseason, you're saying. Other teams are going to look at this and try to set the Leafs up for failure.
Yes. They are looking to box them in and take advantage of them and their cocky other young GM. It makes sense. In that 31 Thoughts podcast, Chayka was like, yeah, offer sheeting is definitely something that we have thought of and could potentially take advantage of. We don't have that a plan whatsoever or having any intention to do so, But he didn't say, like, no, we would not offer sheet.
Yeah, and there's been speculation that younger GMs will be more likely to circumvent this sort of unofficial general manager law. Like, it's almost been, the Cold War keeps coming up in conversation in today's show, but it's sort of a potential mutual destruction, where if you start offer sheeting guys on other teams, the Canucks have seen this in the past, you or they come back the next year or in 2 years and offer some guy in your team way more money than you want to pay just to spite you, because you either have to match it or give up the asset.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see, because theoretically that's not breaking any rules or whatever. It's a way to acquire a player. You are going to have to overpay. And the interesting thing with the Auston Matthews theory, him going home to Arizona, Rhonda will be so happy. Woo! Oh, you have no idea. Her and the 16,000 other people who love that team and will give anything tax dollar-wise from municipalities they don't live in to keep that team alive. No, if he gets offered the $16 million 1 year maximum deal or whatever, it could come back to be an amazing blessing to the Leafs. Because as horrible as it would be, and I'm not sure that would be what you want. You get the 4 first-round picks. Ryan's gesturing to me. That was all him.
That's a 4 horseman hand gesture for the wrestling fans out there. They got 4 because it's based on how much money the contract is. And gosh darn it, $16 million is the highest tier of offer sheeting. So they're going to get 4 first-round picks from Toronto, or Toronto will get that. And so that's a stacked team.
And the Coyotes are a team potentially. The majority, if not all of those, could be lottery picks.
Yeah.
Because they could wind up looking like the Edmonton Oilers, even with an Auston Matthews, because of the unstable nature of the franchise and ownership issues and, potential moves. And, like, there's that same kind of cloud of
but it's almost
doubt.
I almost like, you talk about the old boys club. It'd be the 2 youngest GMs in the league doing it to each other.
Yeah.
Both teams would almost benefit from it, because Toronto, who won't have those high of picks, those 4 picks, getting 4 additional picks with a team is already as stacked and as deep as Toronto.
Well, and they're a team now that we've talked about it a lot, looks like won't be able to afford everyone that they've got in their stable. So you're trading it off for top-end future potential. Like, what else are you going to get? You can't really trade whoever ends up getting moved out of Toronto for assets that are going to be as valuable right now for the team, unless you're getting guys on entry-level deals. Yeah. And then you're just postponing this financial situation a couple of years as opposed to 5 or 6 years.
And it's beneficial for the Leafs. And then with Arizona, you get your hometown kid coming in. And
the only hometown kid you're going to get in Arizona.
And this team is proving that they are, with what they have that is scotch taped together to make a team. They are competing and working their ass off every night. You bring in a pure top line center goal scorer, like that puts Arizona,
someone to play with Clayton Keller.
That puts Arizona over the next level too. Like, it does wonders for both teams.
Potentially.
A lot of allegedlys and potentially is going on here, but it could be very beneficial for both teams.
It's one you don't want to see a guy like that go in a town like Toronto ever. It's one of these tough decisions. Like, they're victims of their own success. Yeah. As much as people go, they're set up for this horrible confrontation of salary cap. Like, it's a great problem to have in Toronto because you have too many good players. But yeah, if you're going to lose a guy like that, it doesn't hurt as much now that you got John Tavares in the stable, who's still got some good years left in him, and all these other youngsters like Mitch Marner, and Willie Nylander will probably get back to where they want him to be.
Hey, he got 3 points.
He's working his way back into shape. He's doing the old 1980s work your way into shape in the preseason situation. But it's not ideal for Toronto, but it wouldn't be the worst. It's a good package.
You're the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who do you want more, Marner or Matthews?
It's one of those. Yeah, probably Matthews.
I could go with a little Marner.
But yeah, it's not as far apart as you might have thought a couple years ago.
No,
Mitch Marner's an amazing player,
and it's a fairly different game from both of them. And both complement the other, but yeah,
Yeah. And then because we were reading about this, I went back and I was looking at the Scott Stevens situation. A lot of successful years with the Washington Capitals, gets offer sheeted in the early days of offer sheets.
I had no idea that he was a Capital.
Yeah, way like before you were born, when you were very young. But yeah, the Blues come in. They give up 5 first-round picks to sign Scott Stevens to this huge, it was like, I forget, $4 million contract or something at the time. Seems ridiculous now. It was like $5 million for 4 years or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, give up your picks. You get your Scott Stevens. They're like, hey, this worked pretty well. They go in the next year and offer the Devils, or offer Brendan Shanahan from the Devils a similar deal, but they don't have any first-round picks. It was like 2, and then the 3 were dependent on something else.
Yeah.
But they offer the money, and Shanahan signs it, and the league allows it for some reason, which to me, it's like you should have probably stopped it, like if they don't have the assets that you have to give up. So then an arbitrator has to come in and figure out, what do the Devils get? And the Devils say, we want Scott Stevens. And they have to give up Scott Stevens, who they just gave up all these picks to the Devils. And then his contract ran up, and they tried to do it again, but I think the Devils keep him this time, and then they go on to win the Stanley Cup a year or two after the second offer sheet on Stevens goes through.
Wow.
And then the Blues end up losing. It took till like 1999 before it finally everything got settled.
Really?
As far as one of the offer sheets, I forget if it was the Devils the second time. Anyway, they ended up having to give up the second round of arbitration 4 or 5 years later, a first round pick, and then I want to say it was the Devils from the Shanahan offer sheet, or from the second Scott there was tampering. That's what it was. There was tampering involved. Like, they were trying to get Stevens on board before he was allowed to talk to them.
Oh, okay.
They had to give up a first round pick, and the Devils had the opportunity to trade spots in the first round another year with the Blues, should the Blues have a better pick than the Devils within a 5-year window.
But the fact
So
that
in the end, they lost 6.5 first-round picks, essentially, in all this offer sheeting.
and they didn't even get to keep Scott Stevens.
No, they had Stevens for, I think, 1 season, and he was the captain that year
Of course he was.
with Oates and Hull and Oates. But anyway, yeah, Shanahan. Anyway, those are the Wild West years where offer sheets were a new thing. You weren't that far removed from, like, players being regionally acquired by teams, where they were just assigned anyone that's born in British Columbia is a New York Ranger or whatever. No, that is a few years back, but weird rules of yesteryear.
That's pretty crazy.
Anyway, Scotty Stevens, the Eric Goodbranson of yesteryear.
Man, we were already like over an hour. And we still, I put out the word that we wouldn't have a lot to talk about, so I put the demand out for questions. You want to just do those on 5 minutes?
You did give me that giant coffee, so I've just been like, and Dave was all worked up about stuff too.
I think he just clutters the broadcast. It's all we're talking about.
Dave clutters the broadcast?
No, yeah, he can clutter the broadcast. He also does a good job.
We covered a lot of stuff, though.
No, but I'm talking about the questions on the next page.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's a couple on here that I'll ask, and then we'll do the rest on 5 minutes for paying.
Okay.
Josh the Zamboni guy at Josh of the Mace asks, how would you do the NHL All-Star Game?
How would I do the NHL All-Star Game?
Yeah.
Do I have to do it now?
I quite like the format. It's a total gimmick, but I quite like the 3-on-3.
It definitely gives the players a chance to show off their skills more.
And yeah, and it's a little more fun, and it's wide open, and I don't have any complaints about it. And I kind of liked the fantasy draft that they were doing for the first few years, but then it resulted in the most boring hockey ever.
Yeah, I mean, that was the draft itself was maybe the most fun part of the weekend.
Because, glug, 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 Ovechkin, fill the thrill.
Yeah, there was fun in, like, the throwback to elementary and high school gym class.
Just, yeah.
Or horrifying memories for some of us that were like the geeks from Freaks and Geeks.
I kind of like the idea of putting a couple of national players, like if they're a couple of the women's players, what we talked about earlier in the show. Fuck, if they did that, I'd be watching. It would be a fish out of water kind of thing, like with John Scott, where it's like, I want to see these people succeed because they're not millionaires, And, well, even Johnson, but like...
Yeah, if you could take the 3 nominees for the Women's League MVP and then their top goalie and slot them in on each of the 4 teams as it is, that would be a lot of fun. I think that would bring excitement. Watch them do it now and not give us any credit.
We will be suing you, NHLPA, so screw you.
How dare you steal our ideas about your product and creative. Anyway.
He goes, what are your thoughts on the new player tracking and glow trails they use for All-Star Weekend? We've already talked about them. I don't need a glow trail. I thought a lot of the stats that I saw were a little hokey, and I didn't need them. But it's neat. It's a neat to have all that at your disposal.
What I realized after that conversation pursued is, you and Dave weren't thinking about it in the same way I was.
Yeah.
You're thinking of it like, on every replay they're going to have the name tag up with the speed, and then the color commentator's going to be like, well, Elias Pettersson's been averaging 20 miles per hour when he's between this line and this line. Like, I'm not expecting it to go that way. I'm more thinking like if I go to NHL.com.
Oh, I want that information
and expect
there.
the shift numbers and this. I kind of like the speed thing because I was like impressed like at the acceleration at certain points.
Of course,
and it is hard to judge sometimes because if you're skating circles or, skating around an Eric Goodbranson versus skating around an Erik Karlsson, it's going to look different, but it's maybe doesn't look as impressive around the Karlsson, but it actually is because he goes 3 times faster.
See, now you're going to do...
Anyway.
Now what's going to happen is they're going to switch their chips on their jersey. So, like, Goodbranson's like, I'm in a contract year. Who's a fat Alex Edler? We got to switch ID chips for the day so that you make Goodbranson look better.
It'll be like when the Sedins used to swap jerseys
all the time, every night.
Daniel, I need a couple more goals to get up to 100 in my career. Do you mind?
Absolutely, Daniel.
But you have to take all the draws. Anyway,
Daniel being waved in for some reason. I don't know what that.
They did say in a couple interviews that they got away more in like junior hockey, where like they'd wave Henrik out of the circle
and
they'd make it like they'd skate around like they were swapping spots, and then Henrik would skate back at center.
They've done it at the NHL level too. There is video.
Did they get away?
Oh yeah, there's video of that. I've seen that before.
Anyway,
speaking of Swedish Canucks, this is a big question going around, and I got a few questions about it. This is from Jay at CanLive89. Must be a big Taylor Swift fan. 1989. Would it be too ruthless to tell Edler they will only re-sign him in the summer if he allows them to move him at the deadline? There's another question about...
Oh, well, are we going
to... Leafs... I just want to get them all in because it's all the same. Left Coast Leafs podcast asks, do you expect Edler to be moved at the deadline? And they also ask, can we crash in your studio March 6th for Leafs versus Canucks? No.
Have to ask Gita.
Yeah, we got to ask Gita. She probably won't like you dudes. You never know. Play your cards right. We'll talk.
But as far as Edler goes, it depends how you do it.
Yeah.
I think they probably have a good idea of where Alex Edler is head-wise.
Doesn't want to leave.
But, I mean, if he's open to the idea of like, oh, yeah, I'll go have this adventure and live in insert name of whatever city he gets dealt to for 2 or 3 months under the guise of like coming back.
Yeah.
They probably know if he's open to that type of thing or not. He might. Mm-hmm. I mean, as long as you phrase it in a way like you're coming right back, you don't have to sell your house. There's no issues like that. But yeah, they'll know whether it would offend him or not. Like,
yeah,
we don't know the relationship and we don't have the insight into where Alex Edler's at as far as being open to that type of thing.
And you never know, and you always forget the human aspect of the game, and the toll that takes on a guy relocating. And if he winds up in a good spot, he's gone from February until the middle of June. Like, it could be, it's quite the toll it takes on somebody, and it's a big change of life and a change of pace. And he seems to really like playing here and only playing here, and he's not an idiot. He knows what him waving his no trade clause would do. It's not like these players, don't know how the system works.
What I foresee, what I predict, we'll see. Usually I'm wrong, right? Although I got Roussel right last year when we're talking about free agency. What I foresee is, I don't know about the trade deadline. We'll see about that. But as far as the offseason, I think Edler stays at a bit of a hometown discount, but not as much as some people, fan-wise, will want it to be.
$1.6 million.
See, because there'll be folks that look back to like the Korea and Solani $1 million deals in Denver to try and load up that team or whatever.
That was to thwart the impending cap. There was a greasy move by those two.
And I'm just saying, people will want him to come back at the league minimum or something,
Yeah.
or not even that, but like much undervalue. I foresee he may take a pay cut from where he's sitting right now to get a few more years guaranteed in Vancouver, but it won't be at a huge discount.
Yeah.
But right now, the way he's playing and the way the defense looks in Vancouver, you probably want to keep him and Tanev around if you don't have anything else that's a sure thing coming in, and you want some of those vets to work with, hopefully, the youngsters you're bringing up. And I know there's a left side, right side situation going on right now, and theoretically, if you're bringing in Quinn Hughes next year, he's probably going to be playing some shifts, I think ideally with Chris Tanev, but then you're still going to connect Tanev and Edler if they're both here next year for half the game, and you're going to be swapping pairs around a little bit. But yeah, that's sort of what I foresee coming. I'm not sure about the deadline situation because I know Edler is not in it. He's not motivated so much by winning or anything. He likes being where he is. He's not an adventurous guy from what we've seen.
Yes. And it's funny when you're in the midst of it. When it's all said and done, you're going to appreciate and love that a player played every single game of his career in the same jersey, and that's for your hometown team. But in the moment, you're like, maybe you can play 35 games, regular season and playoffs with the San Jose Sharks or something.
I'd be curious to talk with someone from Sweden if that's more of a cultural thing, because I feel like when you look at careers of players in Sweden, they typically, it seems to me at least, to play for whatever because I think they're more geographically like it's set up like football, soccer signings, where like you generally just wind up signing for either one of the top teams or your local team, and you just play there as long as you want.
You saw it with the Sedins.
When they'd go back, they'd play for Modo, and Marcus Naslund and Peter Forsberg, even when they went back as management, were working with Modo because there's more basis on community and loyalty, it seems like, to an organization. And I can understand that. If you grew up in Vancouver and loved the Canucks as much as Troy Stetcher, I imagine, probably could have gotten the same or better deals elsewhere. But it seems to me like he loves playing for his hometown team, and that in itself is worth something to him. And to win in Vancouver would be worth so much more than winning somewhere else to some guys or wherever they're from.
You also see it a lot in the NHL. Like we saw with the Sedins, Henrik Zetterberg is another Swede who played for one team. But Henrik Lundqvist is like, I'm not leaving New York.
Even though things have
in the rebuild, like
reset, yeah.
Like go retain salary, go win a Stanley Cup, but he's sticking there. So I mean, it could definitely be part of that, a trait from that country or that what's the word I'm looking for? Culture. Thank you. Very well could be, and we could be seeing it from Edler. And it's tough to say, hey, we really like you, we want you to come back, but for a late first round pick would be real nice right about now.
Yeah, and it's great to see that stuff because, as we know, Elias Pettersson has been a fan of the Vancouver Canucks since he was born.
Mm-hmm.
Google it.
Google that, Vancouver shirt.
I love Elias Pettersson's confidence and a little bit of edge and cockiness, and I think that's part of the reason why he could be the captain of the team in the future.
Speaking of that, Justin Morissette at Justin Morris, because his name's too long. What's a scoop you can break on the show that I can painstakingly transcribe in perfect detail only for you to get really mad at me for listening to your show?
Oh, is he alluding to...
what he did, yeah.
Oh, is he the one...
He's the one that did it, yeah.
So, basically sum it up. What do they call? White Towel Podcast?
Yeah, let's make sure we get the words right there. Through the province, they talked about the Canucks, who are a little milquetoast at times as an organization. They do
a good job of training the players. Not that there are many players that are short with the media, I find, in general after games, but Canucks players are, I'd say, on average, more friendly.
Yeah.
And communicate better with the media relative to the rest of the league.
So he...
and that's coaching in part.
Yeah, Ed Willis and Paul Chapman, I believe, who do the Province podcast. It's the third or fourth best podcast in the city about hockey. And they said that they've learned that within the Canucks organization, they're kind of got it on their radar that Petey can be a little prickly. with the media, and they are either whether they're coaching him or keeping tabs or.
Well, that was what they said was going on.
So Justin, who he just typed out what was said, and he's like, "This is a little concerning." and the White Towel podcast guys were like, "That son of a bitch." Saying we're concerning, or they thought it was an insult to him, and he's like, I was saying it was concerning that the Canucks were trying to be, worried about or wanted to mold Petey into something.
He was more being critical of the organization as opposed to the podcast, but the podcast took it as yeah. No, and I saw people attacking them and stuff, and I don't know. A lot of us are speculating on it. I can only speak, and I've had very brief exchanges with Pettersson.
I do
post-game I do post-game stuff, and honestly, there are games where I don't ask any questions. I'm sticking my mic in because I'm looking for stuff from both rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to send off a package of a wider array of stuff, and I'm not writing an article for anyone. So I'm just looking for generic chatter, and as soon as I get enough out of one player, I'm running off to get another player. But my brief experiences with him, he's not prickly. I wouldn't call it like he makes some smart-ass comments. I called him Red Foreman the other night because he doesn't take crap from people. He'll sort of call people out if they're being dumb, but is that prickly or is that just being like
Kessler and Bieksa
a
did
smart
that
kid
for this team for many years?
And it doesn't seem like he's being a jerk to anyone. He still answers the questions, but sometimes he'll have a snide little sarcastic remark. But I don't know. Some people are very opposed to that type of behavior in youngsters. It's not respecting their Edlers. Sorry, folks. But yeah, everything I've seen from him, he's confident. I noticed the players, even in that loss against Carolina the other night, they're huddling up around Pettersson before faceoffs, and he's doing the Henrik Sedin, calling the shots at 20 years old. Like,
love it.
Everything about him, the way he carries himself, I think it's what you need in a player of that caliber. We're not talking about a gritty bottom six forward who should be a bit of a foot soldier. We're talking about a guy that you want to, lead the way, your future, whoever you think is a good leader in Canucks history, Trevor Linden type of guy, if he's usually pointed to as or Stan Smith leadership qualities. He's like them, but he's got a hell of a better skill set on him. All respect to beloved Trevor Linden and Stan Smith, but like this is a guy that's like, it's like Pavel Bure with more of the confidence and leadership chops from a young age that you see in a Trevor Linden. Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
I just think it's blown out of proportion, and it's media guys getting upset that this kid is being edgy towards media guys. Like, get over it.
And I don't know. I didn't listen to the podcast. I saw some of the aftermath and various people responding to it. But as far as pucks on net is concerned, we're 100% let Petey be Petey.
Speaking of how last week I posted a follow-up article about the Canucks captaincy and how Paul's comments and what he's seen over the years has really swayed me into who could be the front runner of the captain.
Into being, I think we're both sitting in the open-minded.
Yeah, and meanwhile...
we're not saying Pettersson should be the captain. We're open to it.
Bo Horvat is spending his All-Star break with his, I don't know if they're engaged or his partner in Palm Springs, while most other Canucks are whooping it up in Cabo right now.
Together?
Oh,
that's good.
Yeah, but Bo's not there.
Yeah, people always speculate about stuff like that.
There has been some amazing video that's come out on Instagram stories through various, whether it's Canuck Instagram stories or significant others of Canucks on their Instagram stories of the boys heavily intoxicated in bars in a bar in Mexico, and they've self-released this.
Okay.
And
has it been taken down as the team sees it, as we just talked about how...
No, and I think that something could come from this, but I'm not sure because it did in Mexico.
I haven't watched it. Is there anything damning in there, or are they just having a good time and having an extra beverage?
They're having a good time. They're in like a Mexican kind of restaurant bar, and there's like a mariachi.
They're probably at some resort.
Yeah, they're in somewhere in Cabo, and they all have headbands on, and I'm not making this up.
Okay.
Or they have balloons on their head that have been crafted into...
Oh, I did. Someone posted the photo of Louis Eriksson's there.
Yeah, Louis Eriksson is there, and
What did his headband say? It said something risque, didn't it?
Yeah. For those listening with children around, I apologize.
Cover their ears.
His headband said, "Eat pussy."
Right. I did see that photo.
And Ben Hutton had one that said "Pussy Magnet." And Brock and someone else had balloons fastened into a penis that on their head, and they're having a great time. God bless those boys.
It looks like maybe somebody's almost doing the bachelor trip style, but they're with their significant others. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things like
I love it.
Out of context, some people might be upset that it's not appropriate or whatever, but overall, I think
they're not doing anything.
No, they're
wrong.
not doing anything really crazy.
There's one video, and it's Louis Eriksson, and he's got like this like shaker, like a maraca, like kind of like a musical instrument.
Okay.
And he's had a lot of sun that day. Quite a bit of sun.
It'll be fun to see these guys come back all tanned.
And he's just shaking it, and he's having a great time. And whoever's filming it, you could hear in the background, it's like, oh, I've never seen Louis like this before.
Watch Louis come back and get 20 goals in the final 30 games or something.
It wouldn't surprise me when these guys get a nice break at the right time and they go blow off some steam in Cabo and have some damn good fun. Like it could very well be a turning point for them, a TSN turning point in the season.
This is like a train trip with Glenn Gulletson or something here.
A couple beers.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that widespread. I didn't know the whole story, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, so it's great. And if there is a backlash for that, that's fucking pointless and there shouldn't be. And if people will turn this into something that it's not, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, we'll see. Within the organization, they do try to keep at least in the past, it seems like they've tried to keep a firm grasp on the public face of these players. But
this could be one that the Canucks have to really go, oh, geez, boys, oh, no.
Glad you had a good time.
But
maybe take those videos down.
What, Louis?
Keep it to yourselves next time.
What if Louis comes back still wearing his headband?
in the dressing room before the game?
He keeps scoring goals wearing it, and it's like, well, we got to tell him to take it off. He's producing goals.
Just picturing the pregame on Hockey Night in Canada, and there's like a blurred, pixelated section on his forehead. You know what? I'm glad if he's having a good time. I worry about Louis Eriksson because it feels like, yes, he hasn't performed how he should, but I don't think he should have had the contract that put the pressure on him.
Yeah.
And I worry about those guys if, the outside world does get to them even just a little. It's got to be a shitty situation to be in.
Yeah. And these guys aren't robots. They have phones. They know what is said about them. They can find it. They can tell you that they're not on social media or they don't read things.
Even pre-social media, I always go back to Bryant Reeves and his $10 million contract. And it wasn't like he fought that hard for that, I don't imagine. They stuck the contract in front of him. I imagine it was similar with Louis Eriksson. Do you want $6 million for 6 years?
Was he
okay?
Was he wearing his I Eat Pussy headband on at the
Bryant
time?
Reeves?
No,
when he signed the contract,
they all were. That's why they get that money.
Bryant Reeves just said, "I eat KFC" or whatever. Like it was. Bryant Reeves, great player, but should have never been a starter. That's what I say in the NBA. He should have been a good sixth man.
Paul, I'm shocked that we've talked for over like an hour and 20 minutes on a 2-man booth.
Yeah, it's that coffee you gave me. It's mighty strong. I'm still working on it.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up, and there's a few more questions, and apologies to our people that aren't Patreon backers, but Yerky21, Chris Faber, and Pagani, and a couple others have
questions still to come.
Yeah, and we're going to do them on 5 minutes for paying, and this isn't some sort of ploy to get your money, but if you want to, if you've been thinking that you want to support the show, and you want to get a little extra content, you can head on over and listen to these questions being answered over at patreon.com/pucksonnet, where you can pledge a couple of bucks. God damn it.
Couple of bucks. Mind you, it takes $5 to get access to this content, actually.
That's correct. And
it's like the Canucks Junior Fan Club from 1989. Check out my Twitter account if you haven't seen it. Trevor Linden used to be the president, and I'm pushing for Elias Pettersson to be the president of the Canucks Junior Fan Club again.
And make sure you follow us on Twitter at PucksOnNetCA or PucksNetCa. That's better. And if you don't want to give us any money, that's fine. Just go support us on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. Go in there and subscribe and leave a positive 5-star rating and a positive review. That's a really good way to support the show. And if
I was gonna say, what was Trevor's catchphrase or whatever at the end of that commercial where he wants kids to join the kids club? You should join our team, the Pucks on Net team. Although my voice has got a crack because 19-year-old Trevor Linden's voice cracks. We want you on our team or whatever. It was beautiful. Trevor Linden's a great guy.
And if we want you on our team.
Oh, yeah, Pucks on Net.
And that means rating and reviewing stuff. And go subscribe to the email newsletter. And hey,
tell your friends.
Week 16 is 2 weeks long.
Yeah, I noticed. It doesn't help. But now I think the separation between me and my competition's even more.
There's no winning with you.
No, I'm barely winning these days in the hockey pool. But we don't talk about fantasy stats.
Not unless not when the show is so jam-packed like it was tonight.
Nope. Wrap it up, Ryan. Wrap it up.
Rock, move,